Let me tell you about a guy I know. Smart guy, good heart. The kind of person who would drive 45 minutes in a snowstorm to help a friend move furniture. The kind who remembered everyone's birthday. Who always picked up the phone. Who genuinely believed that if you treated people right, the world would return the favor. For years, that belief cost him everything. It cost him his energy, his confidence, his sense of self-worth. Not because the world was unusually cruel to him, but because he kept operating on a rule book that nobody else was following. One day, something shifted. I do not know if it was one conversation, one betrayal, or just the slow accumulation of too many disappointments. But the next time I saw him, he was different. Quieter, more deliberate, the kind of calm that does not come from never being hurt. It comes from deciding that nothing outside of you gets to own your inner world anymore. He told me, "I did not get harder. I got clearer." That sentence is the entire point of what we are going to talk about today. Because right now, there are two versions of you competing for the same life. The first version keeps explaining itself, keeps forgiving without thought, keeps bending to keep the peace. And the longer that version runs your life, the more invisible you become to the people who should respect you most. The second version operates differently. It does not argue for its own worth. It does not chase what walks away. It does not perform kindness for an audience that will never applaud. It simply moves with purpose and lets results speak. Today, we are going to walk through 8 fundamental shifts that separate those two versions of you. These are not motivational slogans. They are operating principles. Some of them will feel uncomfortable. Some of them will challenge things you were raised to believe. But if you stay with me until the end, you are going to understand yourself and the world around you in a way that most people never do. Let us get into it. Shift 1. Stop funding people who are draining you. Every single one of us has a finite amount of energy. Think of it like a bank account. You wake up every morning with a certain balance. Every decision you make, every conversation you have, every relationship you maintain is either a deposit or a withdrawal. Most people go through life letting the wrong relationships drain that account down to zero, day after day, wondering why they feel exhausted, undervalued, and stuck. Here is the truth nobody wants to say out loud. Some people in your life are not relationships. They are patterns. They take when things are good, and they disappear when things get hard. They accept your loyalty as a baseline expectation, not as something earned. And the moment you pull back, they act shocked, as if your giving was something you owed them rather than something you chose. The reason this cycle keeps going is not that these people are monsters. It is that generosity, when it is unconditional and unlimited, does not generate gratitude. It generates expectation. When you give freely and without limits, the subconscious message you send is that your time and energy have no cost. And people, consciously or not, treat things according to the price they paid for them. This is not cynicism. This is human nature. The shift you need to make is not to stop being generous. It is to become intentional about where that generosity goes. Not everyone in your circle has earned a front row seat to your best self. Some people deserve a boundary, not an open door. Some relationships have an expiration date that you have been ignoring out of obligation. When you withdraw your energy from the wrong people, 2 things happen. First, you immediately feel lighter. Second, the people who were only there for what they could take will start to fade. And the ones who remain, the ones who actually give back, those relationships deepen because now you have the capacity to show up fully for them. Your attention is not infinite. Treat it accordingly. Shift 2. Stop running from your pain and start mining it. Pain has a reputation problem in this country. We have been conditioned to treat it as a malfunction. Pop a pill, binge a show, scroll until the feeling fades. We have built an entire economy around helping people avoid sitting with discomfort for more than 30 seconds. But here is what the avoidance never tells you. Every difficult experience you have ever been through contains information. Information about your blind spots, Information about who you can and cannot trust. Information about the gap between who you thought you were and who you actually are under pressure. The people who come out of hard times genuinely stronger are not lucky. They are not built from different materials than the rest of us. Think about the last time something really hurt you. A betrayal, a failure, a loss. In the immediate aftermath, the instinct is to get away from the feeling as fast as possible. That is understandable. But if you never go back and examine what happened with clear eyes, you carry that wound around unprocessed. And unprocessed wounds have a way of running your decisions from behind the scenes. The shift here is simple but not easy. When something painful happens, after you have had time to breathe, you sit with it and you ask real questions. Not, why did this happen to me? That question puts you in a victim position. But, what does this tell me about where I placed my trust? What does this show me about my own blind spots? What decision led here? And how do I make a different one next time? That is not dwelling. That is extraction. You are pulling the lesson out of the experience so you do not have to repeat it. There is a reason people who have been through serious hardship often carry an authority that comfort cannot manufacture. It is because they have been tested and they have not crumbled. And once you know you can survive your own worst moments, you stop being afraid of what other people might do to you. That fearlessness is worth more than any external advantage. Your pain is not a detour. It is the road. Shift 3. Break the habit of explaining yourself. This one runs deep because it starts in childhood. Most of us were taught that if we could just make people understand our perspective clearly enough, they would agree with us, respect us, or at minimum, leave us alone. So we learned to explain, to justify, to over-communicate our intentions until we felt understood. The problem is that this habit, taken into adult life, does not produce understanding. It produces leverage for the wrong people. Here is how it works. When you constantly explain your choices, your boundaries, your feelings, you are essentially handing someone a map to your emotional interior. You are telling them exactly what you value, exactly what you fear, and exactly what you need in order to feel okay. And anyone who wants to manipulate you now has everything they need. The most psychologically secure people you have ever encountered do not over-explain. They make decisions. They hold positions. They say no without a paragraph-long apology attached to it. Not because they are cold or arrogant, but because they have internalized a truth that most people miss. You do not owe anyone a detailed accounting of your choices. If you chose to end a friendship, you do not need to write a thesis defending that decision. If you set a boundary, you do not need to justify it until the other person agrees it is fair. If you changed your mind about something, you are allowed to do that without holding a press conference. There is a particular kind of psychological freedom that comes when you stop needing people to understand you before you can feel okay about a decision. You start making choices based on your own internal compass rather than based on how well you can sell them to others. Silence, used deliberately, is not cold. It is composed. It creates space. It forces other people to fill that space with their own assumptions. And those assumptions often reveal more about them than anything you could have said. Talk less. Observe more. Let your actions be the only explanation that matters. Shift 4. Learn the difference between attachment and loyalty. Here is a distinction that most people confuse their entire lives. Loyalty is a choice you make with clear eyes. You know who someone is, what they stand for, and what they are asking of you, and you choose to show up for them anyway. That is loyalty. It is grounded. It is earned. It has dignity. Attachment is something else entirely. Attachment is when your emotional well-being becomes dependent on a specific outcome involving another person. When you need them to respond a certain way, to stay, to validate you, to come back. Attachment does not care about dignity. It will have you send the third unanswered message. It will have you accept behavior that you know is wrong because the alternative feels unbearable. And here is the brutal truth about attachment. The more you demonstrate that you need someone to behave a certain way in order for you to be okay, the less power you have in that relationship, because you have just handed them the controls. The shift here is not about becoming cold or checked out. It is about building a self that is genuinely complete without any particular person's approval or presence. Not as a performance, not as a strategy to make someone want you more. Actually complete, actually okay. When you get there, something interesting happens. You stop chasing and start choosing. You stop tolerating situations that do not serve you because you no longer fear the void on the other side of walking away. And people who were used to your neediness suddenly have to reckon with a version of you that simply does not require their participation. Detachment is not the absence of caring. It is the presence of self-respect. When something is not working, you address it once, clearly, and if nothing changes, you move on. No ultimatums, no dramatic exits, just a quiet decision and a door closing behind you. The people who deserve to be in your life will step up when they see that your presence is not guaranteed. The ones who do not step up are showing you exactly who they are. Either way, you win. Shift 5. Build your boundaries like infrastructure, not afterthoughts. Most people treat their personal limits the way they treat their car insurance. They do not think about it until something goes wrong. By then, they are already in a situation that should never have been allowed to develop. Boundaries are not reactions. They are architecture. They are the structures you build in advance that determine who gets access to your time, your energy, your attention, and your emotional resources. And here is the part that trips people up. Boundaries are not primarily about other people. They are about you. They are a declaration of what you value and how you choose to show up in the world. They are not walls to keep everyone out. They are gates that open and close based on what someone has earned. When you do not have clear limits, life fills that vacuum. Other people's urgency becomes your problem. Other people's bad habits become your burden. Other people's inability to manage themselves becomes the ceiling on what you are able to accomplish. The most effective people you will ever study are relentless about protecting their focus and their energy. They are not rude about it. They are not dramatic about it. They simply know what matters most to them, and they have built their lives around protecting it. Now, when you start enforcing limits, you will face pushback. People who benefited from your lack of limits will call it selfishness. They will say you have changed, and they will not mean it as a compliment. That pushback is important information. It tells you that the relationship was conditional on your willingness to be available without restriction. The right people will not fight your limits. They will respect them, and some of them will quietly respect you more for having them. You do not need a long explanation for a limit you set. You need consistency. One polite statement. One clear follow-through. After that, your behavior does the communicating. Every limit you hold is a signal about who you are and what you stand for. Shift 6. Master your silence. We live in a culture that treats speaking as a sign of confidence and silence as a sign of weakness or discomfort. Every quiet moment in a conversation gets filled. Every opinion gets voiced. Every reaction gets posted. But go back through history and look at the people who held the most genuine authority in any room they entered. The ones who moved things. The ones whose words actually landed. Almost without exception, they shared one quality. They did not speak unless it mattered. There is a reason for that. When you talk constantly, people stop listening. Not because you are boring, but because frequency dilutes value. If everything you say is equally important, then nothing you say is especially important. The person who speaks rarely, but precisely, immediately commands a different quality of attention. And beyond strategy, silence does something that most people never discover. It gives you information. When you stop filling every gap in a conversation, you start noticing things. You notice what people choose to say when the pressure is off them to respond to you. You notice the hesitations, the contradictions, the moments where someone's words and their demeanor do not match. You start reading a room instead of performing in it. Silence in a tense moment is also one of the most disarming tools you have. When someone provokes you and you say nothing, you break the script they had prepared. They were counting on a reaction. Your non-reaction forces them to recalibrate. And while they are doing that, you are the one who is composed, and you are the one who is in control. This does not mean being cold or disengaged. You can be fully present, fully listening, fully connected, and still be strategic about when and how you choose to speak. In fact, the people who are most comfortable with silence tend to have the deepest conversations, because when they do speak, the other person knows it means something. Speak with purpose, listen with patience, and let the silence do the heavy lifting. Shift 7. Rethink what loyalty actually means. This is the shift that makes a lot of people uncomfortable because it challenges something we are taught from a very young age. That loyalty is absolute. That if you are truly loyal to someone, it is unconditional. That framing sounds noble. It is also how good people end up standing by bad situations for years longer than they should. Here is a more honest definition. Loyalty is a commitment to show up for someone when it costs you something. That is the real thing. Not a blank check. Not a guarantee that you will absorb whatever they dish out indefinitely. A commitment to stand with someone through real difficulty. To be honest with them even when it is uncomfortable. And to protect the relationship from threats, including the threat of their own bad behavior. Loyalty without honesty is not loyalty. It is performance. And loyalty without limits is not strength. It is the slow surrender of your own judgment. The most dangerous trap here is the sunk cost. You have been loyal to someone for a long time. You have invested years, energy, real pieces of yourself. And now the situation is clearly not working. But walking away feels like admitting all of that was wasted. So you stay. You rationalize. You find new ways to explain away the same old patterns. The time you have already spent is gone regardless of what you do next. The only decision that matters is what you do from this moment forward. And if the honest answer is that this relationship, this job, this situation no longer serves your actual life and your actual values, then the loyal thing to do, loyal to yourself, is to leave. You are not required to light yourself on fire to keep someone else warm. Be choosy about where you place your loyalty. When you give it fully. When circumstances genuinely change, give yourself permission to reassess. That is not betrayal. That is wisdom. Shift 8. Become someone that circumstances cannot rattle. Every shift we have talked about today has been building to this one. Because here's the thing. The world will keep testing you. That is not pessimism. That is just reality. Relationships will disappoint. Plans will fall apart. People will misread you, underestimate you, and sometimes actively work against you. None of that is going to stop. The question is not how to avoid difficulty. The question is who you are when it arrives. The version of you that we have been building through these 8 shifts does not need favorable circumstances to function. It does not need everyone to understand or agree. It does not need to be the most liked person in the room or even the most visible. It operates from the inside out, which means external conditions, while still relevant, are no longer controlling. Here is what that actually looks like in practice. When someone disrespects you, you do not match their energy, and you do not collapse. You respond from a place of complete steadiness, and that steadiness communicates something that anger never could. When things go wrong, you do not catastrophize. You assess, you adjust, and you move. Because you have already proven to yourself, through the hard things you have survived, that you can handle more than you thought. When you walk into a room and you are not the most connected or the most celebrated person there, it does not rattle you. Because your worth is not a number assigned by the crowd. It is something you carry with you. This kind of inner stability is not built overnight. It is built through every small decision to respond rather than react. Every time you hold a limit when it would be easier to give in. Every time you choose the honest path when the comfortable path was available. Every time you sit with a difficult feeling instead of running from it. These are not dramatic moments. They rarely look like much from the outside, but they compound. And over time, the person who has been making those small, invisible choices becomes someone fundamentally different from the person who has been avoiding them. That is not arrogance. That is the result of doing the work. Let me bring this all the way back to where we started. The guy I told you about at the beginning, the one who spent years giving everything to people who gave nothing back. He did not become ruthless in the way that word usually gets used. He did not become cold or calculating or disconnected from the people around him. What he became was clear. Clear about who he was. Clear about what he valued. Clear about what he would and would not accept. And from that clarity came a kind of calm that most people spend their whole lives looking for in the wrong places. He stopped explaining himself to people who had no intention of understanding him. He stopped chasing what walked away. He stopped tolerating what he once endured because the alternative felt worse. And in doing all of that, he stopped being easy to manipulate, easy to dismiss, and easy to take for granted. You now have the same 8 shifts in your hands. Stop funding relationships that drain you. Extract the lesson from your pain instead of running from it. Break the habit of over-explaining yourself. Understand the difference between loyalty and attachment. Build your limits, like infrastructure. Master the strategic use of silence. Rethink what real loyalty demands, and do the daily work of becoming someone that circumstances cannot rattle. None of this is comfortable. All of it is worth it, because the version of you that comes out the other side of this work is not going to need the world to cooperate in order to function. It is not going to need constant reassurance, constant validation, or constant favorable conditions. It is just going to move. Quietly, purposefully, unshakably. That version of you already exists. Every decision you make from this moment forward is either moving toward it or away from it. Choose toward it. If this hits something real for you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Drop a comment below telling me which of these 8 shifts you are working on right now. And if you want more like this, subscribe and stick around.